friends, you're welcome to our next session. Specifically, in this session, we are going to talk about male caregiver involvement. You realize that when it comes to home-based programming, we have a number of things that are so unique to this set of programming or to this part of our programming. But here you're going to learn that it's very key and very important that we bring fathers on board. So that is why our session is called Dads Are Irreplaceable. Under home-based programming, we acknowledge that the role of the fathers cannot be replaced by anything else. By the end of this learning session, we are going to appreciate the concept of male partner involvement. We are going to learn how we can design interventions that facilitate active male partner involvement and how we can involve male caregivers towards enhancing functionality and self-sufficiency in our families. So it's just such an interesting session that you'll all enjoy. And as we start the session, we want to appreciate the concept of male partner involvement. Whereas mothers play a critical role in the nurturing of children, research clearly shows that fathers are more involved in preparing our children to deal with life. Mothers are so important in making sure that the children are able to survive the day-to-day. But when it comes to life, when it comes to the future, it is the fathers who can play that critical role. And again, we say like mothers, fathers are pillars in the development of the child's emotional well-being. Actually, children look towards pleasing their fathers. They run to their fathers for security and emotional support. When they are emotionally troubled, they look towards their fathers. So that is why it is very important, especially as we look into sustainability of this ministry, we should be able to raise a youth who is emotionally stable. So we cannot leave out the role of the fathers because their critical role plays an important part of the inner growth or the inner strength within a child. Please know that as we discuss male caregiver involvement, fathering is not an extension of mothering. They are not coming in to support the mothers. They are not coming in to supplement the efforts of the mothers. It is a totally different requirement. It's a different pillar of growth. It's a different role that they must play, especially in early childhood. So what is male partner involvement then? The male partner involvement has evolved over time. You realize that it has evolved from a father being a moral teacher. You know, this disciplinary prefects, whereby everyone is looking towards dad coming back and I report this. Many times even our mothers would wait for the fathers to come back so that they report, your girl did this, your boy did this. So it is evolving from a mere moral teacher and a breadwinner, a person that the entire family looks to. They've sent me for school fees, wait for your dad. I don't have this, wait for your dad. So it is evolving from a father being just a moral teacher and a breadwinner to modern perspectives that are emphasizing the importance of an involved father. And what does it mean for a man to be involved? A father or a man is involved in the life of their children if he is present, if he is accessible, available, understanding, willing to learn, and eager to provide emotional, physical, and financial support. So it still has the other components of a breadwinner and a moral teacher, but in terms of the modern perspectives, it goes beyond just being that to being a parent who is available in the life of their children and in the life of their partners. Under access, so male caregiver involvement has three critical aspects. And aspect number one is accessibility. Accessibility is measured in terms of the father's present. How is this father present or available in the life of their child and in the life of the family. When they need him, is he available? Just being available. Is it, the modern perspectives want a father who doesn't come back when the children are always asleep and he leaves when the children are asleep. But is he available for that baby of baby class to tell him all the stories of how class went, how someone kicked me, how someone pinched me? Is he an available father? That is accessibility. And then aspect number 2 is engagement. When he is available doing what? So these are the actual interactions. When he is around, is he seated on his smartphone reading WhatsApp messages? Is he busy watching BBC News or reading newspapers? So there must be activities or interactions. He must be a father who is ready to listen to all those reports from school. He must be able to listen to how I got all the exercise, I got everything correct. He must be willing to listen and interact with the family. Interact with the children, but also interact with a partner. And then aspect number 3 is responsibility. And this is measured in terms of supervisory and parenting activities. Is he present? Is he involved in terms of that pregnant wife who is supposed to go for antenatal? Is he responsible? Is he making sure and supporting in whichever way that the wife will be able to go for antenatal? If he supports and the wife comes back, is he a responsible husband that he desires to find out what happened? What did the health worker do? Is the child at school? It's end of term. Where is your report? Is he able to look at the child's report and say, you performed like this, I'm happy about this? And if the child didn't perform well, is he able to talk to the child in as far as performance? So that is responsibility, and those are the 3 aspects of male caregiver involvement. We are looking at a time when fathers will be accessible, that is in terms of availability. They will be engaged, direct interactions and activities, and then lastly, they will be responsible. But friends, we must agree that we cannot engage men until when we accept to understand who they are. If you're going to engage children, you must accept who are children. What are they interested in? What are they interested in? How can I draw children? And many of us have done a very perfect job by painting all our offices child-friendly colors, by buying toys, coming down to them. When a child comes, you see someone bending low to be able to be at a level of a child. Why? Because we understood who children are. So the same applies to the fathers. It's very important that we understand who is this man that I want to engage. And of course, here we shall look at 2 perspectives. We'll look at the cultural perspective and we'll look at the biblical perspective. Like it or not, we come from different cultures, and our cultures make us. Who we are today is because of the cultural context, because we were raised basing on a cultural context. But again, we shouldn't forget that we are spiritual beings. There is a biblical mandate that makes up a woman and a biblical mandate that makes up a man. So in terms of scriptures, please don't forget that you're going to engage leaders. So have your thoughts. How can I bring a leader on board? Am I going to call them and instruct them what to do? Because these are leaders. How am I going to involve, how will I bring them on board? When it comes to involving a leader, you must know, how do I bring a leader on board? Just look at any of the leaders in your life, and you want to involve them into something. How is your approach going to be? Right from the time of inviting them and even as you engage them. Number 2, you're going to engage with providers and protectors. But remember, most of all the fathers that we are having on board, these are households that are living in extreme poverty. And therefore, the reason as to why their child is registered on program is because that father could not provide. So if you're going to invite them and engage them, please know that this is a person who has a biblical mandate on their life, but they have not been able to fulfill this biblical mandate. So don't invite them and start blaming them, because they are actually struggling and doing their best to make sure that they become the providers and the protectors. So have your thoughts around that. How am I going to bring him on board? This is a provider and a protector probably who has failed to do his biblical mandate. You're inviting a companion, according to Genesis chapter 2, verse 22 to 24. You're inviting a helper. You're inviting a companion, someone's companion. Even as you talk to them, please know that this man will go back in his home, and he has a biblical mandate to love that wife. Make sure that you don't drain away all the love that he had for the wife, and yet he's supposed to go back to that home. You're inviting a priest ahead of a household, who is supposed to be directing the entire household unto the Lord. So friends, please make sure that as you invite men, you're talking to priests, spiritual heads of households. How are you supporting them to become the spiritual heads? We look forward to having many Joshuas in our generation, according to Joshua 24:15. Joshua 24:15, Joshua boldly says, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." In other words, you're inviting this other father or this other priest who doesn't know where he is taking his family. He's actually leading a family, but even him, he doesn't know what is the family's final destination. And finally, you're inviting teachers and trainers. Yes, the Bible invites fathers to be teachers. Deuteronomy chapter 6 from verse 1 to verse 9. Here Moses was reminding the children of Israel of the many laws that the Lord had given them, because the original generation had died in the wilderness. But every time he would invite them, we realize that he would invite, the Lord would instruct him to invite the fathers. So the fathers would come before Joshua. Joshua would tell them the laws. And then Deuteronomy chapter 6, after all this, he would tell them, these instructions, these ordinances that you've had, go and teach them to your children. When you're lying down, when you're eating, etc., read that scripture. So you're actually inviting trainers, you're inviting teachers. So make sure that as we invite them, you know biblically what is the mandate upon their life. Many of them are struggling to fulfill that mandate, but many of them have done something. So even when you're inviting them, please make sure that you're willing to understand what the Bible says about them. And then lastly, in our first session, we need to understand who is this man according to the cultural background. Who is a man in an African context? Here we are going to discuss generally who is a man in an African context, so that as you interact with these men, you know which kind of person are you interacting with. In an African context, a man should be worshipped at home. The man should come back home and everyone will bow down. But because of the circumstances they are going through, because they cannot provide for their families, because they have lost a say in their household, because I'm not the one who buys food, I'm not the one who pays school fees, so I cannot be worshipped even by my own children. That adolescent girl knows that it's the mother who pays school fees. So how do I expect that adolescent girl to worship me? That wife has been buying food, or she has been a breadwinner over years. How do I expect her to worship me? So these are men who, by cultural context or by nurturing, they must be worshipped. And they are not getting this. And therefore, it's one of the reasons as to why their outbursts of anger being portrayed in terms of domestic violence. They are not being worshipped. An African man cannot be corrected by a woman. But remember, you're inviting them and your female staff. And probably you want to discuss a case of violence in their home. But remember, you're talking to someone who cannot be corrected by a woman. Your approach must be very appropriate. African man must be polygamous with children scattered all over. Yes, he cannot even care for the 4 that he has now. But according to his nurturing, he's supposed to have many other women and produce more children. So if you're going to talk about family planning with this man, please have that at the back of your mind. African men don't apologize. There is a lot about African men that we can talk about. African men don't apologize. African men are not romantic. An African man deals with his own issues. So please don't expect to call men and ask them, what are the challenges you're experiencing? There is no African man who can tell you, this is the challenge I have at home. They have an ego within them that they should deal with their issues. And lastly, I know there is a lot here that you'll be able to learn, but lastly, an African man must have a son. So friends, if you have this family and so far they have only girl children, please know that that African man is not content. That African man cannot do house chores. While you're calling these men to support their wives because they are pregnant, please know that this man was nurtured not to do house chores. There is a lot about African men. I want to encourage you to read more. But as we end our first session, I want to leave this as an assignment for each one of us. Who is an African man in your cultural context? If you come from the Gisu community, please tell us who is a Gisu man. He must be circumcised. For us in a Gisu community, if you're not circumcised, you're not a man. So please tell us who is an African man, who is a man in your cultural context. I'll be waiting to hear the so many perspectives of African men according to our different cultural contexts. See you.